So really what we're going to start talking about is there's kind of 4 awareness levels. If you think about what's going on in your life, and the first one is unaware. So this is, you're going about your daily life, maybe you're walking down the street, you're driving in your car, you're listening to the radio, maybe you're at your house, you're doing gardening work, and you're just not paying attention to anything in your surroundings. You're kind of focused inward or on the task that's at hand, but you're not absorbing or processing really any of that external information on what's going on around you. The second level is aware. How many people here have kids? I have kids. So I ask that specifically because once you have children, it has a tendency, you always have some base level awareness going on of your surroundings, where your kid's at, what are they into. Anybody ever had your mom have kind of eyes in the back of her head? I know I certainly did. Right? Throw a shoe at you when you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. So when I talk about being aware, this is just consciously you're aware of what's going on in your surroundings. Once in a while, maybe if you're out in your yard doing yard work with your family, you're looking around, you're absorbing that information, you're noticing things that maybe are out of place. You're not doing anything about it, but you're absorbing that information and starting to process it. So you have an awareness level that's going on around you in your surroundings. Excuse me. The next stage is alert. So alert is something is out of place, something has woken you up, something is making you pay attention more than you probably would. So if you're outside in the street, maybe there's a car going through the neighborhood that you don't recognize, something about it doesn't seem right, doesn't smell right, doesn't look right. Maybe if you're going to an ATM machine, somebody's standing behind you and you kind of get that tickle in the back of your head. Or if you're in your house, you hear a noise outside that's out of place. Something has alerted you, it's putting you into a heightened state of awareness. You haven't reacted to anything yet, but you're paying closer attention, you're listening to that noise going, do I recognize what that is? Is that something that's really out of the ordinary, right? The next step is alarm. Thank you. This is when something has triggered a threshold where you've gone from an alert, very aware state to something has alarmed you. You have a perceived threat of bodily injury. So that could be, you hear a glass breaking, maybe in the door into your kitchen, somebody's trying to break into your house, or somebody's approaching you on the street and making overt or aggressive actions, or speaking to you in aggressive fashion. You move to an alarm status. This is the point where typically you have to make some decisions on what you're going to do with the situation that's in front of you, whether it's in your own home or out on the street. So I've got 2 slides here. What I'm talking about is securing your environment. So I asked a little earlier, how many people here live in a house? Doesn't necessarily mean that you own the house, but you live in a house. So what we're talking about to secure your environment, let's say you have a house, a little bit of property. One of the things that you want to do is you want to make sure that you cut back some of the shrubs or the trees that are close to that house, or maybe are right next to a entranceway or next to a window. And the reason you want to do that is if somebody's trying to get into your house, all you're doing is you're providing them concealment from the outside world, from your neighbors, if you've got something for them to hide behind. Or if you think about trees, keeping those trimmed back, 2nd-story windows, I don't know about anybody else, but I have a tendency to open an upstairs window and then I forget about it. It's unlocked, maybe it's open in the summer to get a breeze going through. Well, if you have a tree that has some nice, easy, accessible branches next to the house, all you're doing is putting out an invite to allow somebody to climb into your house. You're giving them easy access. So you want to keep those shrubs and trees trimmed back away from the house. The other thing that you might want to consider is having what I would classify as hostile plants next to your windows, next to your entrances. So you think about holly bushes, anything that's going to be not comfortable to try to sneak through, walk through. There's a bunch of different types of shrubs and trees that fall into that category that will just start to discourage anybody from being next to a point of entry inside of your house. The other thing, anybody have a garage? Not quite as common in Pittsburgh as it might be in other cities. But you always want to make sure you keep your garage door closed, right? Keep your doors locked. Anybody have a garage door opener in their car? I know I'm guilty of that. What you probably don't want to do is have that someplace where it's easy to see to the outside world. Either totally remove it from your car or put it someplace inside the car, inside the glove box, inside of the spot between the seats. So somebody that's a casual observer isn't able to see that out on the seat or Velcro to the ceiling. Some of the newer cars, you can actually program it right into the car itself, which I don't know, has good and bad aspects to it. Somebody steals your car, they can open your garage door with no hassles, but it's certainly not something somebody could steal out of the car and take with them. The other thing you want to do is make sure you have external lighting and keep it well maintained. So security lights, motion sensor lights. I own a cabin that's out in the middle of nowhere, 5 acres, and I have motion sensor lights on every corner of that house. Once in a while, deer might set it off, but if anybody's walking around my property, those spotlights are going to come on and I'm going to be able to see them before they ever get close to the house. Very simple, keep your doors locked. Include all the doors. Think about the windows. I don't have it up here, but you can also consider if you have basement windows that are older casement style windows. Those are very favorite pieces for somebody trying to come into your house, is to climb through that basement window. So think about the glass block windows, very inexpensive to put in, but a great way to secure a basement window, still allow light to get in, and then you don't have to worry about having a unsecure point of entry into your house. I own 2 dogs. I own a Great Dane and a Black Lab. Great Dane is a big pushover, but I gotta tell you, if the first time you ever meet him, you come up to a dog that's this tall, he's pretty intimidating. So it's a pretty simple way to protect your house, is to have a dog. One of the other things that's might seem kind of funny, but it's very practical. If you own a smaller dog, get yourself a large, overly large food bowl for the dog, and get a chew toy that's one for the size of a Great Dane, even though you might have a Shih Tzu, and have that laying around outside. Perception is reality. Somebody sees that, they're going to assume you have a much larger dog than you do. Or maybe you own 2, they only hear the little one barking. Very simple things. You have somebody that comes up to your house, somebody walks up to you, maybe you're outside in the yard. Probably the first thing you want to do is get to a safe point. You don't ever want to be cornered in your own property. So first thing I would probably do is back up and actually get to my front door, maybe have a hand on the door handle so I'm ready to go inside if I need to. If it's somebody I don't recognize, why are you here? What can I do for you? Somebody asks to, my car broke down, I want to come borrow and use your phone. I'll make the call for you. You give me the number, you wait outside. Or I have a cordless phone. I'll go inside, get the phone, and bring it out to you. You can use it in the yard. I'm not going to allow you to come into my house unless I know exactly who you are and what you want. Somebody that's a repairman, telephone, gas, electric, make sure that they show you ID. It's very easy to go to a, Walmart and buy a blue overcoat and stick a, Dave name tag on it and say, I'm with the electric company or the gas company. Make sure they show you valid ID. A lot of people are guilty of the next one, that is, keep your valuables away from your windows. So you think about that brand new plasma TV maybe that you just bought, or your VCR, or you got some nice pieces inside your living room. You want to make sure that that either is away from the window so somebody can't see it, or if your layout of your house doesn't allow you to do that, then make sure you keep your drapes closed if you're not at home, especially if you go away on vacation. Otherwise, all you've done is allow somebody to do a little window shopping. Go through the neighborhood, house to house. Jeff, you got great stuff in your front living room. I can see it in your window. I know when you're gone, I'm coming back to get that plasma TV, right? So when you're traveling, you're on vacation, have somebody pick up your mail, have somebody do snow removal on your driveway and sidewalks. Think about automatic timers on your lights, living room, maybe a bedroom, maybe you leave a radio on. The other thing that you might want to think about is you get papers, Wall Street Journal, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, have somebody pick that up for you. The other thing is have somebody else park cars in the driveway if you have a driveway, so there's a perception that somebody is at home at all times. Thieves typically will case a neighborhood ahead of time, so they'll know who's in town and who's out of town, because most people forget to do some of this stuff. I'm a big fan of this one. Know your house or your apartment in darkness. Be able to walk through it without the lights on. That will help you if you get surprised, you need to get somewhere. You think about going through your house in a normal fashion. You have all the time in the world to turn on the lights, turn off the lights, go around the couch, what have you. But either in an emergency situation where you don't have the time to do it, or you want to keep it dark on purpose to not give somebody else an advantage, you want to make sure that you understand what your house is in darkness and where you can get to. You want to think about having, actually I'll back up for a second. So I asked a question, how many people have fired a firearm, how many people own a firearm? First off, I want to make sure it's clear that we're not politically trying to say that you should own a firearm. It's a personal choice. You have the right to do that in the United States. I personally own firearms. I'm exercising my right, but I'm not going to try to inflict that on somebody else. That's your choice of whether you want to do that or not. And there are lots of reasons why you would decide to own a firearm or not to own a firearm. Completely up to you. So I say that before I give you kind of the next statement. So you want to make sure that you have access to a cell phone that works. Think about somebody, if I'm an intruder and I'm going to come into your house and I plan on doing you bodily injury, or I plan on taking everything under the sun that's worth anything, first thing I'm probably going to do is I'm going to find the telephone point of demarc on the outside of your house and cut it. You can't call 911. Burglar system doesn't have a backup connection into Guardian or ADT or whoever, because I've cut that before I ever got into the house. So that's why it's important to have a cell phone so you can have a connection to the outside world. To call 911, you call the police. Have a working flashlight. If it was up to me, I'd have access to a firearm at some point. We can get into safety of storage of firearms, making sure you keep things locked up in a safe, but you can't have access to a firearm that's loaded and still have it in safe storage of some kind. And we can go through what those options look like. But that would probably be next on my list to get to. The other thing I would go to is a safe point somewhere in my house. Maybe I'm going to pick an upstairs bedroom. Maybe I'm going to pick a room that's got a little bit of cover and concealment. We'll go through what that means here shortly. But I'm going to have a designated spot in my house I'm going to retreat to when I feel that I'm threatened or I'm alarmed that something is going on that I don't find acceptable in my house, whether it's an intrusion or I'm alarmed enough that I've heard a noise that concerns me. I'm going to go to that safe spot, take these items with me, call 911, and stay out of the way. Okay? The other thing that you want to think about is you're trying to set yourself up. So we train in the dojo specifically so you don't have to think about a reaction, right? You're training yourself to have that muscle memory, to have those automatic reactions to certain types of situations. We're trying to do that here as well. So you think about this, if you have kids, you've got a family, or even it's yourself, you're going to want to run this like a drill, just like you would escaping from the house if there's a fire somewhere. Okay? So you want to run your family through a preset collection of actions that are in response to something that's triggered a level of alarm inside of your head. All right, cover and concealment. There is an awful lot of concealment in most people's houses, but there is not an awful lot of cover. The definition between the two covers anything that's going to protect all or parts of your body from incoming gunfire. Concealment is really going to do nothing more than give you an opportunity to hide yourself. So if you think about the normal items that are in your house, couches, chairs, maybe a hutch, right? Refrigerators, appliances like a washer and dryer down in the basement, a closet, even the interior walls. These are all going to offer you some combination or piece of either concealment or cover. You got to think about this ahead of time. Somebody comes into your house and they mean to do you bodily harm. And this is really what we're talking about. Somebody maybe has got a firearm with them trying to come in and rob you or do you bodily harm. If they start shooting at you, what's going to protect you? Typically, you hide behind a couch. Maybe that works in the movies, but it doesn't work in real life. Right? Refrigerator, probably give you some medium, if you're lucky, aspect of cover from firearms, from incoming gunfire, depending on what the angle is of that shot. Maybe a bookcase, solid full of books, might give you concealment and some cover, depending on the caliber of the firearm. I shoot a .357 inside of a house, it'll go right through your bookcase in 30 seconds or less, I guarantee you that. Even a car door. I've times seen police on the TV hide behind a car door. Yeah, well, that's not really going to work. Okay? Maybe it's a small caliber, you might get lucky. The whole point is, if you have a safe place to go to, you're probably going to have more concealment than you will real cover if things really start to get dicey. Don't change it just yet. I will tell you that certain things will give you great cover. A waterbed, at least the first time it gets shot, typically will give you pretty good cover. Okay? And heavy-duty appliances are probably your next best bet. Unfortunately, in my kitchen, my refrigerator is stuffed in between cabinets, so I can't really hide beside of it or behind it, right? But a washer and dryer might slow it down a little bit. Go ahead. What happens if you start to get that alarm, somebody's breaking into a window, you feel that the intruder's trying to come into your house, maybe you've woken up in the middle of the night, you hear somebody kind of rummaging downstairs. First thing I want everybody to do is call the police. Call 911. Do it immediately. And I'll go through these details in a second. Avoid direct confrontation. So don't try to go find the intruder. Even if you haven't confirmed that there's an intruder in your house, assume that there is, call the police, go to a safe location. Go to your safe room that you've decided on ahead of time that is a decent spot inside of your house, and take your family members with you so you know where they're at during the confrontation. The other thing that's extremely important is I want you to all have in your head a limit that you set that's going to initiate action on your behalf. What threshold needs to be crossed, that's going to force you to do something to defend yourself or those that you care about, i.e. your family. If you're forced to defend, it's going to happen extremely quickly. It's going to happen at arm's length. It's going to be extremely violent, and it's all going to be over in a couple of seconds. Okay? You're not going to have a lot of time to think about it. Because it's inside the confines of your house or your apartment, it's going to happen very, very close to you. You're going to come around a corner, or they're going to come around the corner. They're going to be right on top of you. And if it comes to a point where you're defending yourself, it is going to be extremely violent. That person that's the intruder is going to react almost as emotionally as you are, as the aggressor as you are as the defender. All right, so there's an intruder in your house. Now what are you going to do? Retreat to the safe room. I absolutely want to make sure this is extremely clear. Do not go looking for that intruder. Okay? The risk of being ambushed somewhere, even in your own house, is extremely high if somebody has entered your home. So go to your safe spot and don't go looking for them. If you choose to own a firearm, my next suggestion would be to retrieve that firearm and have it with you so you're able to defend yourself if it gets to that point. Have your cell phone ready. I'd give it a couple of seconds to try to confirm, if you can, even though remotely you're trying to do that, is there really somebody in your house, or was it just a noise that triggered an alarm level for you emotionally? If you are pretty sure that there's somebody in the house, go ahead and call 911. Excuse me. Don't hang up the phone. As soon as you call 911, you want to give them immediately your name, your address, what you think is going on. Okay? If you have multiple family members in the house with you, or friends, or somebody staying with you, let them know how many people are in your party, so when the police show up, they're expecting an intruder and they see 2 or 3 other people kind of scooting around the house, they don't assume that those are the bad guys as well, right? But don't hang up. Stay on the line. If you need to, set the cell phone down with the live connection still going on, okay? This is the scenario that if you own a firearm, place the phone down and get ready to go. So if you think about maybe hiding beside your bed, kind of pointed at the bedroom door, if you will, that intruder is still advancing in the house. That intruder now is maybe trying to get into that bedroom door. You need to warn them. So there's some legal aspects here. Stop what you're doing, go away. I've called the police. So this is also being recorded at the same time. 911 also goes onto a tape every single time. Everybody's heard that on the TV, on the news, right? So you're protecting yourself at the same point that you've given an ample warning for that person to stop what they're doing and to turn around and go away. If they don't do that, then you have the absolute right and responsibility to protect yourselves if it gets to that point. So what happens if you get to that point and you end up having to shoot somebody, or you're kind of trapped in your safe room and the police arrive? What I need you to do is make sure that you stay in place. Don't go walking around the house. Maybe you feel like you've diffused the threat. Maybe you've ended up having to shoot somebody. That person is laying on the floor. Don't go walking around the house. Don't show up at a window or at a door holding that firearm. The police are showing up and they're expecting an armed encounter. You've told them that on 911 when you called them. The dispatcher has shared that information with them, that there's an armed intruder or a burglar in your house and they mean to do you harm. Maybe they've even heard the dispatcher where you've ended up having to protect yourself and you fired a couple of shots. They know somebody in that house has got a firearm, maybe more than one. Okay? So they're going to be very, very key. If you can, let the police know where you are in the house. So if you still have the cell phone connected to 911, tell the dispatcher, we're in the upstairs back corner bedroom and I have my 2 kids with me. There are 3 of us in this bedroom. That's where we're at in the house. You see anybody else, apprehend them. You also need to make sure that you move very slowly. So from a physical aspect, you don't want to you're going to be keyed up anyways, but you don't want to move quick, make jerking actions. You need to really force yourself to slow down, be patient. The police are going to have that same kind of emotional stress response that you're going through at the same moment, right? And the last thing you want to do is end up getting hurt or escalating a situation that doesn't need to be escalated because the police are as keyed up as you are. So I talked about setting a threshold. Whatever that threshold may be, and that could be somebody's within a certain amount of space from your personal body. Maybe you say to yourself in your head, you've got a 10-foot radius. If somebody gets within 10 feet, moves in an aggressive action, that's crossing my threshold. I'm going to react. Maybe you see a weapon of some kind in that person's hand. They're holding a knife, they're holding a firearm, they're brandishing it at you. They're making threats that I'm going to cut you, I'm going to hurt you, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to rape you, whatever. You're setting a threshold where you're saying, I'm going to respond once that threshold gets crossed. There's no reason to overtly cross that threshold yourself. That's a legal responsibility of yourself. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I also want you to consider this conversation is all about use of deadly force as an absolute last resort. There were no other choices. You didn't have an opportunity to run, get out of the house in a safe fashion, right? Somebody has cornered you and is coming at you and offering you bodily injury. Or somebody that you care about, one of your family members, your wife, your husband, your children, what have you. So if you end up confronting an intruder, the intruder has choices just like you have choices. So that intruder has a choice that I'm either going to, if I'm the bad guy, I'm either going to run away, flee the scene, right? You've yelled out, I have a gun, scares me, I'm going to run out the back door, it's not worth it, I'm just trying to steal your VCR. It's one of my choices. The other choices I might have is you tell me to stop, lay down, chin on the floor, wait for the police. I can comply with those commands. That's a choice. Or I can decide to challenge your commands. Maybe I feel that I'm still the one that's in charge of the situation. Maybe I don't know, or I'm not convinced you have a firearm, you're yelling at it from behind a closed bedroom door. I have a gun in my hand, I feel like I'm the big bad guy. I'm going to challenge your commands. I'm in control, you're not. You're the victim, I'm the aggressor. Your reactions, very, very typical. When you get into a high-stress situation, you end up having some sort of brief moment of freeze, right? So you're unable to make decisions. Maybe you're literally physically stuck in place. You don't know what to do, where to go, okay? I would expect that any high-level stress situation you're in, you're going to freeze at least for a moment or so. What's bad is if you freeze for a long period of time. There can be an emotional freeze as well. Somebody has surprised you in your house, orders you to lay down on the bed. I'm going to do bad things to you, right? Emotionally, you decide to not do anything. You're just going to lay there and be a victim, okay? That's another version of freezing, not taking control of your own destiny. Posturing is, you ever see two guys in a bar kind of trying to bluff each other out, right? I'm a badder ass and you're a badder ass. Well, that's posturing, right? So you may have that going on between yourself and the intruder. And part of that posturing is letting them know, I've called the police, I have a firearm, and I'm willing to use it. That's a posture. You're trying to out-bluff them and trying to get them to make that choice to run away and flee from the situation. Last reaction is, I've decided I'm going to stand my ground and I'm going to defend myself. I'm going to fight. So, command and control. You come down from your bedroom, somebody's in your living room, they're unplugging that plasma TV, I got a firearm in my hand, command and control. What do I want them to do? I'm not going to approach this intruder. I want to keep a safe distance of some kind. The last thing I want to do is put myself in a situation where they can get their hands on me, surprise me, take my gun away. Maybe they took one of our classes. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to try to frisk this person. I'm not trying to search them for weapons. I'm assuming if I can't see and it's a dark living room, they have a weapon of some kind. I'm making that assumption. They've broken into my house. I'm in concern of my own bodily harm, those of my family. So I'm not going to try to frisk them and find out what they might be carrying or might not be carrying. That's the police's job. I'm going to tell that intruder to lay down, face down on the floor, chin in the carpet, or chin on the tile. Okay? I'm going to tell them to spread out their legs, spread out their arms, and turn their palms up. Physically, what this does is it puts them in a totally vulnerable situation where they can't react to anything. And I want to see them in the middle of the floor where I can see what might be in their hands or not in their hands without having to be close to them to touch them and find out and frisk. The other thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to back up and put myself into a safe position of some kind. I'm going to back up against a wall. I'm going to back into a corner somehow. Okay? The reason I want to do this is because I'm looking for the accomplices. And the best way to think about it is wolves travel in packs. It's pretty typical that it's not going to be just one intruder. It's probably going to be him and his best buddy robbing every house on the street. Okay? So it's very likely there will be an accomplice somewhere else in the house that you haven't seen yet and you don't know where they're at. If you're standing in an open doorway, you can end up being ambushed by that second or third person. Okay? The other thing is, you don't want to get into a conversation with the intruder. There's an emotional reaction here that, as the victim, I don't want this to be happening. I don't want to have conflict. So it's a very common emotional reaction that I'm going to want to let this person go. I'm going to want to give them the benefit of the doubt. And the intruder is going to know this, and he's going to play on these emotional reactions. Oh, I'm a nice guy. Oh, I was just here. I'm sorry. I'm down on my luck. Just let me go, buddy. Just let me go. No conversation. The other thing you want to make sure that you're doing is you're shouting these commands, and I'll go into why you want to do that. But base level, you want to make sure that they can hear it, and it's extremely clear what you want them to do or not to do. You also think about that cell phone still connected to 911. It's being recorded. Okay? I will guarantee you at some point you'll be exposed to legal action of some kind. So you're protecting yourself in the future after this altercation is over. Being very, very clear what I want you to do. Stop. Lay down. Facing the floor. Palms up. Shut up. Don't talk to me. Be quiet. The police are on the way. Period. And that's it. Okay? The other thing here is we're projecting intent. We talked about that in class. You're projecting the willingness to defend yourself if it comes to that. You want to make sure that it's very clear. You can do that in your body posture. You can do that in the tone of your voice. If I'm standing here even with a gun in my hand, it's like, oh, stop. Right? If I'm the intruder, I'm still viewing you as a victim, and I think you're a pushover, and I'm going to take advantage of it. But if I'm clear, stop, lay down, totally different. Okay? If that threat doesn't stop, they've opened the bedroom door, they're walking towards you, and you've yelled out these commands, and they have not stopped. Shoot! And keep shooting until that threat stops. You're not going to shoot just once. You may end up having to shoot 2, 3, 4, 5 times until they stop doing what you want them to stop doing. So let's talk about the physical and emotional body reactions to high levels of stress. One of the first things that's going to go is loss of fine motor skills, right? And fine motor skills include manipulation with your digits. Your hands could end up becoming almost claw-like, right? You're not able to function at that minute level of detail. Your vision is going to start to tunnel in. This is a natural body reaction to focus just on the threat that's in front of me to protect myself. It's going to exclude everything else that's out and around you. And we'll talk about how you can get around that in a second. Muscle trembles. So your body is going to dump a huge amount of adrenaline into your system. And the physical reaction to that is your muscles are going to start to tremble. The intruder and yourself, if you're not aware of it, you may actually view that as a huge fear reaction when in reality it's nothing more than a physiological reaction to a chemical that's dumped into your system. It's putting a lot of energy into your body so you're able to either run or fight. Okay? Anybody heard fight-flight response, right? In biology in classes in high school and college and what have you. That's what that's all about. And they're feeling it at the same time. You may see that intruder holding a firearm in their hand pointed at you, and that firearm's shaking like this. It's because of the adrenaline in their system as well. Okay? I want to make sure that you understand that you, the intruder, and the police are all going to experience this. Okay? Police officers are humans as well. They're going to have the same kind of response. Maybe they're a little more trained. Maybe they're slightly more calm. But I can tell you I've seen lots of videotapes where police officers get into a high-speed chase or what have you. They have the same kind of emotional response anybody else is going to have, and it should fully be expected. Ramifications. So I talked about shouting those commands. You actually will start to lose some of your hearing as well. You'll have almost tunnel hearing. You'll be so focused on that threat in front of you that you won't hear noises behind you and around you that you normally would be aware of. Okay? So by shouting those commands, you end up clearing some of the stress response inside of your own system. Not only do you communicate clearly to the intruder and what you want them to do or not to do, but it also physically starts to open up your own hearing in your own body. So shouting those commands. If you can, try to think slowly and clearly. And this is the only way, is by practicing some of this stuff ahead of time. Making it some sort of natural reaction. It's a drill you've been before. You've practiced it on another live human being here in a safe environment like we're going to do today, right? So trying to be as clear in your responses as possible. It's very easy to overreact to a situation when you get into a high-stress environment. I talked about tunnel vision. Talked about scanning for accomplices. What you want to do, and we'll show this physically a little bit later. The head and the torso should move as one, but you should also always be turning and looking, because your eyes literally are going to focus just on what's directly in front of you. So you need to make sure that you compensate for that by scanning left and right, up and down. Okay? If you're in the middle of an open room, I may very well scan as close to 360 as possible while keeping myself back to some sort of protection like the corner of a wall. And you have to focus on trying to listen for additional sounds, listening for those other accomplices, more glass breaking, somebody walking up behind you, somebody knocking something over. So even though you've got all this emotional stuff going on in your body, survival should be your #1 priority. And I tell you that because it's very easy to allow yourself to be a victim in certain situations. You want to fight back and defend yourself. There are FBI statistics that say that it's 3 times more likely you will end up dead or seriously injured if you give in to some sort of attack versus fighting back in some way, shape, or form. Pushing, shoving, yelling, scratching, kicking, whatever. If you give in, you're more likely to get hurt or dead. Question that you got to ask yourself, are you ready to take somebody else's life to save your own? That's a hard question. That goes right back to your own moral, religious, and thought processes on, am I prepared to do this to protect myself and protect somebody that I care about? I know what the answer is for myself. I'm not going to hesitate. If somebody is threatening me in that fashion, where it's either they win or I win, somebody lives, somebody dies, I choose me. I choose my children. I choose my wife. They came in, they're the bad guy, they can figure it out later. That's their problem. You ready to tolerate judgments of friends and family? I can tell you my dad was a police officer. My father got into a chase, ended up on foot. The gentleman he was chasing took shots at my dad and his partner. And I can also tell you that my dad had to return fire, ended up shooting him, didn't kill him, but shot him pretty bad. And he spent the next 20 years, he quit being a police officer, and he spent the next 20 years emotionally having real problems with the fact that he had to shoot another human being. Even though he was dead right, and he protected his own life and the life of his partner. Okay? So you got to think about these things. There's an aftermath to all of this. What's it going to mean to you and to your friends and family? There are people that will tell me flat out, you know, my moral standards or my religious standards don't allow me to react in this fashion. And that's okay. That's your own personal choice. Okay? As long as you understand the ramifications of what those decisions might be. So, aftermath. Somebody's come into your house, you've had to protect yourself, you've shot somebody. All shootings are going to be investigated as a criminal act by the police. They're going to, more than likely, take you into custody. More than likely, they're going to take you down to a police station and interrogate you. Maybe they'll interrogate you at your house or your apartment and then take you into the police station and interrogate you. You always have the right to an attorney before any interrogation by the police officers. But I want to make sure that you're prepared to know that that's probably going to take place. 99.9% plus, that's going to happen. They're going to take you into custody, they're going to interrogate you. This does not mean that you're going to necessarily be prosecuted or convicted of a crime. You do have the right in the United States to defend yourself in your own home. I also want to warn you that it's very common nowadays that the family of the intruder that you ended up having to shoot to defend yourself, maybe you won't get prosecuted in criminal courts, but they're probably going to bring some sort of civil case against you. Okay? It's another consideration that, you know, I'm guilty of this. I think I'm a bad guy, right? You know, I own a firearm. I'll do whatever it takes to protect myself. You do that, you're in the right 100%, and you still get sued. Unfortunately, that's the society we live in today. Yeah, my reaction exactly. So what that means to you is, when this takes place, immediately thereafter, consult with an attorney, because you're probably going to need it. Unfortunate, defending your own life and the life of the people that you care about, but once again, that's really what we live in. So, if you're familiar with the Second Amendment, right to own firearms, it's really more of a right to defend yourself in your own home. As soon as somebody crosses the threshold into your house, the law is more on your side, criminally, to defend yourself and protect yourself. There's a base level threshold that if you assume or feel that you're in threat of serious bodily injury, whether they have a weapon or not, but you think they do, and you think they're going to seriously harm you physically, you have a right to defend yourself, including the use of deadly force.